Okay, this is a demonstration to make a multi-signature hardcover book. And the first thing we're going to do is go over the supplies. So you need 12 sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper, a ruler, your awl, your bone folder, scissors, a piece of cardboard, your thread, needle, your PVA glue, a brush, some tape or ribbon that's 1/4 inch wide, and a pencil. This is what the demonstration, this is a demo copy of what I made earlier, and I took it apart so you could see what it is that we're going to be trying to do. So we're making a hardcover book and for multiple signatures, and here I have 5 signatures. And we're going to cover the signatures with an end paper. We're going to sew it all together, cover it with an end paper, and then you're going to have this nice hardbound multi-signature little book. So the first thing we're going to do is you got to cut up and make your signatures. So you have to get your signatures ready. And as all you want to do is take the 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, fold it in half, and cut it in half. Let me just make sure my fold is even and try to get this fold as even as possible. And now I'm just going to cut it in half like this. And then I fold it in half. And we call these folded sheets of paper the folio. And what I want you to do is have 5 sheets of this size paper folded in half to create one signature, okay? So we're going to make 5 signatures all together. Here's the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in each one, you have 5 folios, okay? So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's your first signature. Okay, so once you get these all folded and together like this on top of each other, with your bone folder, push down and burnish so it's nice and flat, as flat and even as you can get it. Now we're going to take these tapes to reinforce the book, the signatures in the book, so that they don't accidentally slip out. So what it's doing is just reinforcing and making strength in the spine. And here you can see my tape, my 3 tape slips. 1, 2, 3. So in order to measure the tape, you want to take the height of the spine. So here are my signatures. And before I do anything with the signatures, I want to make sure that on each signature I label the head and the tail. So the head is the top, so I'm going to put an H for head and a T for tail. And you do that on each one of these signatures so you know for sure which is bottom and which is top. Alrighty, now I'm going to stack them all up together, and I'm going to measure the height of these signatures. So I'm going towards the spine, so the spine is where the folds are, and I want to measure the height of this. And I know that it's 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to measure, take my tape, and I'm going to measure the height of the spine. So from here to here, which in my case, this height is 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to add 2 inches on one side and 2 inches on the other side. So that's 2 1/4 inches altogether. And you're going to cut 3 of these. So you'll have a piece of tape here, a piece of tape in the center, and a piece of tape at the end. Okay, and again, these tapes are just to reinforce your book so it doesn't rip. So set those aside once you have them cut out. Then we're going to cut a piece of scrap paper that's the height of your book. And the height of your book is 5 1/2 inches. So here, 5 1/2 inches, a scrap piece of paper that's 5 1/2 inches long, that's 3 inches. This is going to be our hole punch guide. We're going to fold that in half lengthwise. And then we're going to measure 1/2 inch from the top and 1/2 inch from the bottom. So 1/2 inch from the tail, from the top. And 1/2 inch from the height, 1/2 inch from the bottom. There we go. Then what you want to do is you're going to measure between the 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, and you're trying to get equidistant from these two measurements. Okay, so it's 4 1/2 inches long, so then equidistant is 2 1/4 inches. Now what I have to do is I'm going to take one of my tapes, and I'm going to make sure that I center the tape. I can see through, and I want to center the tape where that center mark is. So then I'm going to mark either side of the tape onto the fold. Okay, so here's the center point, and then here's one tape mark, and here's the other side of the tape mark. And then I'm going to, from here to here, find an equidistant to put the next piece of tape in, which I'm just going to eye it. And I'm going to make a mark on the right side of the tape and on the left side of the tape. And then from this 1/2 inch to this center mark, I'm going to go halfway equidistant from here to the tape, from here to the tape, and mark it on either side of the tape. So all together I have 8 holes. So the first is from the top, 1/2 inch down, and then the first tape. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. So this is our guide that we're going to use to punch all of these folios at the same time, all of these signatures at the same time. So you're going to open up your signatures. Make sure that the head and the head, I put an H for the head and a T for the tail, that they're all lined up and they're the same. Fold them all inside of each other like this. Okay, so they're all stacked on top of each other. I'm just going to tap them in place. Tap it in place so everything's nice and even. And then I'm going to lay a piece of cardboard down, lay the signatures down on top of each other like this. Make sure they're all even. Take my guide, and in the crease of the signature, I'm going to put the guide, the crease of the guide. Make sure everything's lined up. And now I'm just going to pierce each one, each hole. So here's from the top or the head, I'm going to go down 1/2 inch and pierce. And you twist it and pierce it until you go through your cardboard. All right, then go down to number 2 hole. Again, you twist it and pierce it. My 3 hole. 4. So you're doing this on all of the papers, all at once. You're getting all the holes so that they all land in the same place. And you're making the holes in the seam, the fold of the signatures. Okay, so take your time doing this. Make sure you get pierced all the way through. All right, so now you can move that. And before I move the signatures out of the way, I'm just going to make sure that my awl, I'm going to pierce it one more time, just making sure it's coming through the other end. So make sure you do that. So I'm holding this tightly so it doesn't become unstacked, holding it in place, but just making sure that the awl is going through each hole that I made, all the way through. And here you can see. All right. And here's my last. So now we're getting ready to sew the signatures together. So separate the signatures out again. So you have 5 sheets per signature. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, make sure that you have them labeled the head for an H and the tail. One, two, three, 4, 5. Here's my head and my tail, and it's stacking on the head and the tail. One, two, three, 4, 5. Here's the head and the tail. One, two, three, 4, 5. The head and the tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the head and the tail. Okay. So now I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to go from the height of the book, so from the head to the tail 5 times with my thread. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just cut that. And then thread, take your thread and thread your needle like this. Okay. And you want to put a knot at the end. Okay. So don't put the knot at the end yet. But we will be doing that in a second. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to get ready to sew the first signature. And the way to sew you're going to sew in the 3 tapes in the signature, and then you're going to sew 1 signature on top of the signature. Okay. So place the pieces of tape loosely in place. So we need to find our tape. Where's my tape? Get your tape and just kind of keep it like loosely in place. It's gonna keep falling out, but don't worry, just have it there. Just getting myself organized and getting my tapes together right now. So here's 1 tape. And I did cut 3 pieces of tape. So I'm not seeing them right this second, so I'm just going to cut 2 more again, even though I did it once. And remember, I told you, you measure the tape by the height of the spine plus 2 inches plus 2 inches. Okay, so here are my tapes all together, and they're all in place like this. Here we go. So we're going to take the first piece of tape and hold it loosely in place. We're going to push the needle through the first hole at the head. Okay, so here's the head. Here's my needle. So we're going to go push it through from the outside. Okay, so pushing through the first hole at the head from the outside to the inside. you're going to leave a 3-inch tail. That's about 3 inches right now on the outside. And later on, we're going to knot this, but keep it loose for right now. Don't knot it yet, but you're going to leave about a 3-inch tail on the head, okay? Then you're going to go push the needle through the next hole. So you're going through the next hole that you see. And now you're on the outside. Then you take your tape, hold it evenly, and you're going to sew the next hole, which is right next to the tape. And this stitch is loosely, don't do it too tight, but firmly but loosely holding the tape in place. Okay, so that's a little too tight what I just did. We want it like this. All right, and then I'm now going to go, I'm on the inside and I'm going through to the outside and tug it so it's taut. And now place your second piece of tape and center it so it's even. There we go. And the needle goes around the tape and back into the center. All right, so there's my second tape. Now I'm in the inside and I'm going up to the next hole right here. Make sure that's nice and taut. Then put my third piece of tape in place, like this. And make the stitch around it to hold it in place. And then I'm going into the, because I'm in the inside, I'm going through the hole, the last hole, and I'm going to, now I'm on the outside. Okay, so here my needle is at the tail. I have the 3 tapes sewn in, and this is what the inside looks like. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches. All right. So now we're going to fold this like this. And we're going to place the second signature on top of that. Okay, so that's just going to go right on top. So fold the tapes down like this, so they're out of the way for right now, and line it up, and make sure that the head of this signature is also the head of the second signature. Okay. So the needle's on the inside, and we're going to push it through the next hole from the inside to the outside. So here we go. The needle's on the outside. Is that what I said? The needle's on the outside. And then we're going to push the needle from the outside to the inside. Right here. Now the needle's on the inside. Okay. Now we go to the second hole, the second signature. take the tape, bring the tape around the signature, and bring the needle into the third hole. Which is right here. Okay, so you're just attaching that second signature now. Make sure it's nice and taut. Try to keep the two signatures on top of each other. Make it nice and neat. Then I'm going through this 1, 2, 3, the fourth hole of the second signature. Going up, pull it, the thread until it's taut, and go around the piece of tape and back into the hole. All right. Go to the next hole. This is going to go around the tape. And the next hole. Okay. And now we're at the head. And pull it until it's nice and snug. All right, so here are the two signatures on top of each other. And now we're going to take the third signature and attach a third signature the same way. Alrighty. Again, make sure that you're in the right direction, the head and the tail. Okay. Here's my head and tail lined up. Okay, and we're going to attach a third signature the same way. So we're just going to go in from the tail. Go in from the tail, like this. Go to that next hole. Bring the tape. Make the stitch around the tape. And go all the way up until you get to the head. Every once in a while, check the inside to make sure that your stitches are taut, but not so tight that they're ripping. Get that tape, loop around the tape. And now what we're going to do is you're going to make a kettle stitch that connects the third. Oops, look at this. My tape didn't get in there, that stitch. So I gotta loosen it up and make sure my tape fell out of that. It's really important to make sure the stitch goes around each tape. All right, so let's straighten up the tapes. There we go. And the signatures. Now that's too loose, I gotta tighten that. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, you're at the top of your third signature, and you're going to go between the first and second signatures and pull the needle through and make a loop, and then you're going to stitch around it. So here we have the first signature, the second signature, and here's the third. We're going to take the needle between the first and second like this, and then we're going to take that loop and we're going to, that's our kettle stitch. Okay, so this is very similar to the Coptic stitch. And you see that little knot? So that's holding it together now. Don't do it too tight because you'll rip your paper, but you want that little knot there. All right, so now the needle's on the outside and we're going to add our fourth signature. Again, you want to make sure the head and the tail match up. Okay, so here's my head and tail. Go into inside. So the fourth signature is now being sewn on top of the third. Make sure the tape, your stitches around the tape. So the stitch should never go through the tape, okay? So you never make a stitch through the tape. You sew around the tape. It does take some finessing here. You want to just be slow and careful. There we go. Bring that tape around and make the stitch around the tape. needle keeps slipping out. There we go. All right, there we go. Okay, so now my needle's on the outside of the fourth signature. I'm just gonna get my tapes and my spine all kind of like sorted and neat. So I'm just gonna tap it, get these tapes in order. Like this, okay? Just tap it like this. Okay, so we're on the outside of the fourth, next to the 3-inch tail of the thread. Right here is that tail, right? So we're going to actually attach these two by making a square knot. We're not going to take the needle off. We're just going to attach that tail with the thread, with the needle, by making a square knot. So the square knot is, you go over and under, not that, and then the next one, you go under the thread and over the thread. So a square knot is under, over, under. And there you have it, okay? We're not gonna cut the needle off because we still have one more signature to sew. All right. So we're gonna add the last signature. So we're gonna make a kettle stitch between the signatures every time you're at the last hole at both ends, all right? So we're gonna attach this last one. So we're going to go in. Gonna make the stitch around the tape. Go back in. Once you've done this a couple of times, it's a lot easier to do. The first couple of times you do this, it's a little awkward, but it's really quite easy. And it looks really beautiful to have this like hardbound book. I have to say it's also a little bit difficult to show it as a video and try to make sure that you all can see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So everything's lined up. And I'm going to do that kettle stitch once I get all my tape and everything lined up nicely. So I'm going to go between the third and fourth, go through that, and get that loop and go around it to make a knot. And then I'm going to do that one more time just because I am getting ready to end this. All right, so there you have it, nice and tight. Okay, so there it is. This is your signature, and this is how the signatures are bound together. So the next thing we want to do, stack these up nicely like this, and get everything in place. And with the hammer or the end of your awl, you're going to hammer the spine because you want to get that so it's nice and flat. Now I'm just going to flip it and do the same thing. So we're trying to get the spine, the signatures all to lay nice and flat and even. And we're just going to hammer this with the awl. Okay, so that's nice and flat. And now what you're going to do is you're going to put tape between the stitches and on the spine. Glue. You're going to put glue in between the spine, in between each signature and the stitches and the tape. So here's my PVA glue. And hold this tightly. And if you have little clips, sometimes it's a lot easier just to like clip this to hold it in place. And here's my glue. And you just kind of like push the glue in there, okay? So you're trying to get the glue, the bristles in between the signatures and also on the stitches and also on the tape. So you kind of like tap and push it in. Don't use too much glue. You don't want to get it so it's like coming way over here, okay? You're just concentrating on pushing the glue between each signature and the spine. So you're really tapping the bristles in between those signatures. So now I'm going to line up the spine again. I'm going to put a piece of plastic over the spine. Like this. And then I'm going to let the spine dry. So I'm going to line up the spine, put a piece of plastic on it, and then I'm going to put weight on this. And let's see, what do I have that weighs a lot? Here I have this gallon container of simple green. So I'm going to put it right on the spine like this, and I'm going to let it sit for 30 minutes until the glue dries. All right, so after this dries, then I'm going to show you how to put the book cloth on the boards and attach it to the signature.